My girlfriend said, if you love me, unlock it. I refused. She smeared me as unsafe. I turned the rumors into a public masterclass on boundaries that exposed everything, without exposing her. On the train between Brooklyn and Jackson Heights, with her head against my shoulder and the tunnel breathing like a sleeping animal, my girlfriend slid her hand into my coat, took my phone, and said, if you have nothing to hide, unlock it. I took it back. That single second, my palm closing over glass, cost me love, sleep, and a reputation. It also became the first brick in a revenge I never wanted, but absolutely earned. If you've ever been told that trust means surrendering your privacy, this one's for you. Hit like, subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you draw the line. Because by the end, you'll see how I turned "show me your phone" into the most public lesson in boundaries my community has ever had. I'm 22, born and raised in New York, the city that promises you anonymity and then remembers your face forever. She was 19, tall and soft-spoken in rooms, and wildly certain online. We'd been on and off almost a year, the kind of relationship that's both a shelter and a storm. Our families are Muslim, different countries, similar rules, and any talk of us always slid around the edges of what parents might accept, what aunties might whisper, what futures are supposed to look like. 2 weeks earlier, she'd broken up with me. I just can't do this right now, she'd said over FaceTime, face lit blue by her screen, the type of breakup that sounds gentle but slices you where you store your hope. I'd spiraled quietly. I journaled in the Notes app at 3 a.m., words that looked like claw marks. Dark stuff I was too ashamed to say out loud. Not about hurting anyone, never that. About feeling small, worthless. About how my chest buzzed like a bad fluorescent bulb. About how maybe love was a hallway I wasn't built to walk down. Then she texted again. Let's talk. We met in Brooklyn, in a little spot that sells chai that tastes like someone told the milk a secret. We laughed like we were remembering the choreography to an old dance. By dessert, it was as if those 2 weeks were a glitch. We kissed beneath a storefront awning as rain stitched the street into a sheet of silver. We said, I love you, because sometimes love is both a truth and a truce. That we took the train toward Jackson Heights, so I could walk her home. The car smelled like wet wool and penny coins. A kid drummed on his backpack with pencils. A man slept with his face mapped by the reflections of passing lights. She hugged me from the side, cheek on my sleeve. I missed you, she murmured, and something warm unfolded in me, some animal in my ribs sitting up, believing in morning again. Then her hand slid into my coat pocket, casual as if she were reaching for a mitten, and came out with my phone. She didn't ask, didn't joke, didn't glance up to read my reaction, just held it like a piece of evidence. Unlock it. I laughed, tiny and confused. What? What? If you have nothing to hide. I took it back before my brain caught up to my hand. No, her eyebrows sharpened. No, it's private. I felt stupid even saying the word in a city where privacy means breathing 6 inches from strangers. It's not. I'm not texting anyone. The messages are. They're personal. Personal like girls. Her smile had a hook in it. Personal like my head. I swallowed. Stuff I wrote. After you left. The tunnel howled. The car sighed. She watched me with that keen, bright intensity she used when she wanted compliance. So you can't show me. I won't. There's a difference. Same difference, she said. If you cared how anxious I've been, you'd show me. Her grip on my arm tightened. The date reassembled into a room where furniture had been moved 2 inches left. Familiar, but wrong enough to trip you. You broke up with me 2 weeks ago, I said carefully. I was bad. I wrote things I'm not proud of. Not about anyone else. About me. Dark stuff. I'm not ready for anyone to see that. So you do have something to hide. We argued from 36th Street to Steinway like a small storm trapped in a metal tube. I kept saying, I love you, but I need privacy. She kept translating privacy into infidelity, no matter how I spelled it. People looked away, the way New Yorkers perform kindness, pretending they can't hear you fall apart. At Jackson Heights, Roosevelt. We surfaced into steaming street carts and neon grocers and the 1,000 languages of Queens. I walked her toward her building. The rain had stopped, but everything dripped. Awnings, leaves, the world. She faced me with a calm I didn't recognize. I can't trust you, she said. You took my phone without asking. And you wouldn't give me what I needed. What you needed was my diary. What I needed, she said, was proof. Then her voice cut, sharp and surgical. Nothing about you makes sense. Your job, your late nights, your moods. You're lying about something. The word liar slides into your ear differently when it comes from someone who knows the color of your laugh. I froze. I'm not lying, I said. Then show me your phone. No, then we're done. She turned, buzzed into her building, and left me holding a night that felt light as paper and heavy as steel that I didn't sleep. I lay in my studio in Brooklyn with the windows open to the wet sound of tires on asphalt, reading over the notes I'd written during those 2 weeks, the ones I wouldn't show her. I wrote to survive the fall. I wrote because the darkness, when typed, looked like a creature I could stare at without being eaten. But now those same word scratches were being used against me. The next day, the day after, the rumor engine warmed that a mutual texted, "Are you okay?" with the slippery tone of someone peeking into a room already on fire. What did she say? I asked. Just that you've been off. That she felt unsafe. That you hide things. Unsafe. The word caught in my throat like a seed. I thought of the subway car, my phone in her hand. I thought of my no, how it tasted like courage and came out sounding like guilt. And when I tried to explain, even in my own head, it sounded like excuses. I'm not cheating. I'm just writing. In the dark that I sent her an email, because we'd blocked each other everywhere else, trying to explain the difference between privacy and secrecy. She wrote back, "You scare me. I don't love you. No one should trust you. You're the craziest thing that's ever happened to me." Then, "I wouldn't trust any daughter with you for marriage. It was like being excommunicated from a religion I was born into. Not Islam, the other one. The religion of being seen as safe. I closed my laptop, pressed my palms to my eyes until fireworks burst in red and gold. The next days were a blur of work and not eating. I do remote night shifts sometimes, contracts people misunderstand, data triage for a health tech outfit that monitors hospital discharge summaries and flags follow-ups. Unsexy, invisible, essential. I told her what I do. She never believed it fit anything she pictured. Now, not believing turned into liar. I kept hearing metal, the turnstile clank, the minute my phone snapped back into my hand. I wanted to stand up on a table somewhere and explain to a jury of everyone I'd ever met that no isn't guilt, it's a boundary. That love without privacy is surveillance. That Islam has a whole word, amana, trust as a sacred deposit, and it doesn't look like fishing through someone's pocket on the R train. But even if I'd found that table, I had no voice left that didn't tremble. 2 weeks after the break on Jackson Heights sidewalk, I found out what she'd told more than a few people in our circle, and the word wasn't just unsafe. It was dangerous. Dangerous. The syllables weighed differently in different mouths. In ours, in our community, dangerous is a story with missing pages that everyone fills in out of fear. It doesn't have to mean violent. It often doesn't. It can mean unpredictable, unstable, don't bring him home. It can mean he will ruin the fragile fabric, the fabric that holds families, reputations, Saturday dinners. It can be a grenade with the pin already out. I heard it first from Samir, the kind of friend who speaks in traffic cones, bright, blunt, meant to keep you from wreckage. "I'm telling you because I want you to hear it from me," he said over a plate of greasy fries in a deli that only knows how to be fluorescent. She's not using names, not explicitly, but it's obvious. She told people you get weird, that you shut her out, and that when she asked to see your phone you got aggressive. Aggressive how? I asked, too calmly. Just stiff, intense, cold eyes. You know how stories grow legs. He looked at me. "Look, did you grab her or something?" I grabbed my phone back. "Did you raise your voice?" "In a train car, no? Outside." We argued. I rubbed the bridge of my nose until I saw galaxies. I said no. He tapped the table. "Okay, but what people heard is, she asked for transparency and you clamped down. In their head, that equals smoke. Smoke equals fire. What equals I was falling apart and wrote it down. My voice cracked. What equals I'm allowed to have a locked door in my own mind." Samir sighed. "Not much, man. Not in a group chat." I went home and read the notes I'd written again and again. I had written about walking at 3 a.m. under the BQE, how the trucks above sounded like God dragging furniture. I had written about feeling like my bones didn't fit. I had written, I wish I could fall asleep inside a good memory. There was no blame in those lines. Only gravity. I emailed her again, against every rule of dignity. Please stop saying I'm unsafe. It's not true. You know I never. She replied instantly, like she'd been waiting in a loaded chair. Stop emailing me. You scare me. You're manipulative. You just want to make me feel guilty for protecting myself. Protecting herself. The words lay there like knives lined up perfectly straight. I pictured her on the train, the cool shape of my phone in her hand, the click of her nails on the case. I wasn't in her pocket, walking around with an unlocked version of her. I was a person. I wished she believed that mattered. The night stacked. I set alarms to trick myself into sleeping in small pieces. I showered with the water hot until the mirror cried. I showed up to clients' dashboards and flagged missed appointments and sent careful emails with templates because the professional version of me was the only one who didn't shake. I skipped Friday prayers 2 weeks in a row, then dragged myself back on the third and stood shoulder to shoulder with men whose skin smelled like clean wool and soap. And I kept my eyes down because I didn't know who had already heard that I was a storm. After, the imam spoke about Amana without knowing my name, about trust as stewardship, about how the Prophet, peace be upon him, never asked to read hearts like ledgers. I stood with my shoes in my hands and felt my throat loosen and then tighten again. Poetry on its own didn't silence group chats that in the afternoons, I started running. I don't mean athletic running. I mean an animal trying to outrun fire. 10 blocks, then 12. Through Sunset Park, where little kids on scooters look like fast sunlight. Past the older men playing dominoes and lifting their eyebrows at me like it gets easier. It didn't, but it knocked the rust off my ribs. After, I'd sit on a stoop and feel my pulse like a beating broom. Word kept finding me. Someone who didn't know me well messaged to say I should work on my therapy. A mutual DM to ask if there was anything I wanted to admit. Samir forwarded a screenshot from a close friend's story. Hers, just text white on green. If you think you know someone, ask to see their phone. You'll know everything you need to know. No names. But we live in a small city inside a giant one. I was too proud to send screenshots back. Too ashamed to paste my notes into a chat and say, see, this is what I was hiding. It felt like undressing on a bus. I asked myself if my refusal on the train had been stubbornness. If love means opening every door, even the ones that lead to basements. But the more I asked, the clearer it felt. If your love needs my lock code, it's not love. It's a badge and a flashlight. Point one night, not sleeping again, I ended up in a forum for men in faith communities dealing with anxiety. A stranger wrote, some of us are told that headspace is selfish. We are told to be walls, no windows, no rooms. But if you can't close a door, you're not a house. You're a field. And fields get trampled. I cried. The quiet kind where your body shakes, but no sound changes in the room. I started therapy through a sliding scale clinic. The receptionist kind and brisk, and nobody's Annie. On the first session, I told her the train story. She asked, what did it feel like when you took the phone back? Like swallowing a battery, I said. Like I'd chosen myself, and someone would now prove that was a crime. And if the choice could speak? She asked. It would say, I'm not a suspect. I'm a person. She nodded. And what would justice look like? I pictured her, the girl I hadn't named yet, even in therapy, standing in front of a crowd and telling everyone she'd been wrong. I pictured an apology drafted with surgical precision. I pictured people who'd avoided eye contact coming back to me with open palms. I pictured being restored to my old name, safe, worthy, not a rumor, justice. I said finally, would look like the story being told correctly. And revenge. The word felt like a room I wasn't supposed to enter. Revenge would be the story being told loudly. Do you want revenge? The therapist asked gently. I hesitated. I want the lesson to stick, I said. Not just to her. To everyone. How do you teach a lesson without harming the student? I thought of our community. The masjid. The aunties. The way right lessons delivered wrong turn into spears. I thought of my own notes, of sentences that still looked like fresh wounds. You do it, I said, like a khutbah. You talk about the principle. You tell a story with the names missing. But you make sure everyone who needs to recognizes the outline. For weeks, that idea sat like a seed behind my heart. I worked. I ran. I slept a few hours at a time. I answered Samir with one-line texts so I wouldn't pour my whole brain into his laps. I stopped opening Instagram whenever someone sent me a screenshot. Like I was refusing to enter a house where people were throwing my photos against the wall to hear what sound they made. Then a thing happened that snapped the seat open. A cousin of hers, the one who always wore denim jackets with stitched flowers, caught me in Jackson Heights by the halal cart and said, "I don't know why she keeps talking about your phone like that. She used to check my phone when we were kids and tell me she had to because she loved me. She has this thing." She shrugged and swiped her card at the cart and didn't look at me. I'm not saying she's wrong or you're right. I'm saying the story is bigger than your pocket. I stood there with steam in my face and a white bag of food in my hand and felt something yank into place. The story was bigger than my pocket. It was about a kind of love that was really a checkpoint. A gate. A metal detector that went off at the sound of no. "Thank you," I said, "for telling me that." She nodded like a witness does, fast. Eyes down, already walking away. That night, I wrote in my notes, "If privacy is a crime, we're all inmates pretending our jumpsuits are matching pajamas." I stared at that sentence and understood my revenge completely. I didn't need to expose her. I needed to build a stage where the principal could stand, hold a microphone, and tell on anyone who violated it, including her, without me ever saying her name. The plan would require our mom, a coffee shop microphone, a website I'd code from scratch at 2 a.m., and a risk that she'd come and recognize herself in a room full of people who suddenly believe that saying no to a phone search is not a confession but a boundary. The first time I said it out loud, it was to the therapist, and it sounded almost silly. I'm going to give a talk, not a TED Talk, not a YouTube rant with a clever thumbnail. I wanted something closer to a Friday sermon, and a town hall had a child, equal parts principal, and people looking each other in the eye. I started with the thing I knew: infrastructure. At work, I thread information through systems so nurses don't miss calls and grandfathers don't miss meds. Invisible scaffolding. I could build that for this. Step 1, a name. I opened a blank doc and typed Ammonites. Then I deleted it. Too religious for the people who need this but don't speak that language. I typed "no is not guilt." It looked like a protest sign and a lullaby for the part of me that had been redirected into a shape that fit someone's suspicion. I bought the domain that night with the last, stubborn $14 from a prepaid card. I watched the confirmation email arrive with a green check, like a tiny door clicking open. Step 2, a room. Our imam is the kind of man who looks like he knows which cupboard the cups are in. He walks the masjid like a good father in a kitchen, confident, helpful, quiet until necessary. After prayers on a Thursday, I asked if I could speak to him. His office smells like sweet tea and carpet. I told him a sanitized version. A friend whose girlfriend demanded his phone, who called him unsafe when he refused, who spread the word like dandelion seeds. I told him I wanted to host a community night about boundaries and trust, especially around devices, especially for the young. I asked if the masjid could be the venue that he listened with his hands folded, then asked only one question. "Would you name anyone?" "No," he nodded. "Good." He pulled a desk calendar toward him, an old-fashioned square of paper held up by a tiny metal triangle. "We have a flex night on the last Saturday of the month. Usually a youth circle. I'll make it a joint. You speak for 20 minutes on the principle. I'll speak for 10 on the Prophet's Amana. Then we open the floor." "My story?" I asked. He smiled a little. "People love stories. Just do not aim your story at a person. Aim it at the principle." I swallowed the weird mix of gratitude and adrenaline that tasted like biting a coin. "Thank you." As I left, one of the aunties outside in neon sneakers offered me dates from a little plastic container like it was an oath. I took one and felt my body recognize sugar as a treaty. Step 3, the stage before the stage. I didn't want it to be only the masjid. Some of our peers wouldn't walk into that space even if it was on fire one of their own. So I asked Manny, who runs the coffee shop on 73rd that gives poor kids free donuts if they show a report card. "Open mic," I said. "But like, not poetry. Stories about boundaries. Relationships. Phones. I'll do the first one. No names. No shaming. Just the principle and some gallows humor." Manny grinned. "If nobody shows, we'll both drink espresso until we can hear our blood think." "Deal." He pointed at the corkboard. "You can pin a flyer. I'll put it by the bus number tutoring schedule." Step 4, the web. At 2 a.m. in a t-shirt that said Bronx for no reason, I coded a site with a landing page that read, "No is allowed. Privacy is not secrecy." Boundaries are a form of trust. Below that, a box to submit anonymous stories. Times people were asked for passwords or treated like suspects in their own lives. Times someone said no and paid for it. Times people snooped and what it did to them after. I made sure there was a little banner about safety. This wasn't a confessional for crimes, but for the foggy damage we do when we confuse surveillance with love. By morning, I had 3 submissions. Then 8. Then 24 when Manny reposted the flyer on the coffee shop's Insta, and a high school guidance counselor sent it down 3 group chats like a paper boat on a fast stream. Step 5. The outline. I rehearsed the talk on long walks that made Brooklyn feel like a treadmill. I wrote the beats on index cards so I couldn't hide inside paragraphs. Opener. The night someone took my phone out of my pocket and told me to prove my love. Principle. No is a boundary, not an indictment. Faith frame. In both languages, amana. Trust as stewardship, not surveillance. Culture. What our aunties do to protect us becomes a prison if we make it policy. Stories. Anonymous reading snippets from the site. Teenagers. New husbands. Old girlfriends. Practice. How to have a phone policy. Conversation in dating and in marriage. Ritual. Draft your own privacy statement like you draft vows that I practiced in front of my therapist. The first time, I flinched when I reached the subway scene, as if she might take my phone again from pure muscle memory. The therapist said, "Slow that part down. Let us smell the car." So I rewrote those sentences until they felt like standing in that rolling metal tube again. The tunnel breathing, the kid with pencils drumming. The second my hand met mine, step 6, the invite, I didn't send it to her. I wanted to. I hovered over her email address, that familiar string of letters like a song you're sick of but still know by heart. Then I closed the tab. This wasn't about dragging her into a courtroom. This was just math. If you do X to people, Y happens to them. If you make Y somebody's reputation, you fracture Z, the community trust you claim to protect. The solve was to show the math on the board. A week before the talk, Samir sent me a screenshot of a WhatsApp chat where someone had posted the flyer and typed, "LOL. Guess who this is about?" The replies were flame emojis and detective gifs, and one person who wrote, "Who cares? Maybe we need to hear it." I put my phone face down and concentrated on the sound of the radiator hissing, like the building was saying yes in Morse. The coffee shop night Manny dimmed the string lights until the room looked like an apology. People came. Not a lot. Enough to make a hush when they sat. Young couples holding hands like they were checking each other's pulse. A trio of girls in oversized sweaters. 2 older men who always argue about soccer like it's theology. A mother with her college-aged son. And in the corner, my heart accelerated. Her cousin in the jacket with stitched flowers. Eyes lowered, thumbs braided together. Manny tapped the mic. "No poetry tonight," he said. "Unless you perish without it. Stories only. Ground rules. No names, no indictments, no doxing. Honor the principle. I'll kick you out if you try to show receipts. This is a receipts-free zone." He nodded to me. "Take it away, Chief." I stepped up. It's funny how a mic transforms your breath into something you can hold up to the light and examine. I told the train story in the present tense. I let the room ride the air train with me. I described her hand in my pocket like it was a question disguised as a caress. I described my phone in her fist, not as a weapon, but as a ledger she believed she was entitled to audit. I described my no, not as a refusal, but as a vow to remain a house with a door. I read 2 anonymous submissions. A 19-year-old boy whose fiancé asked for his passcodes and then combed his photos for whoever she felt insecure about until she found enough to feel vindicated. A 26-year-old woman who said, "My mother used to read my texts to keep me safe. Now my husband does, and I flinch when I type love." I offered a practice, the privacy talk, for sentences to say at the beginning of any relationship. I will never ask for your passcodes. Please never ask for mine. If something makes you anxious, ask me about that thing, not my entire life. If my no scares you, let's find out what wound it touches and treat the wound. Not me. If either of us can't keep this agreement, we shouldn't be together. When I finished, the room didn't clap right away. They exhaled. Then the cousin raised her hand like a kid in class. "What if you already demanded it? Like, you were the person at the checkpoint. How do you come back from that?" "Confession is a kind of mortar," I said. "You say you were wrong. You apologize without saying but. You build a new bargain. And you never, Ever tell anyone that someone's boundary was an admission of guilt? The mother with the college son raised her hand. What if he is hiding something? Like porn, or DMs that look like gray areas? If he is, you want to know by asking about behaviors, not by rifling through his drawers, I said gently. Also, if you both agree porn is a problem, make it an agreement you renew like rent. Don't catch him like a cop. Manny put on espresso and made it smell a kind of applause. On my way out, the cousin handed me a folded note. Later, in my apartment, I opened it like an old piece of bread I wasn't sure was still good. She thinks phones are truth machines, the cousin had written. They erased her lying father from their life. She's not the whole story. I'm not excusing. I'm explaining. Good luck at the masjid. She'll probably be there. I let the note sit on my desk like a detonation with a long, patient fuse. Masjid night, the men's shoe rack looked like an art installation of tired leather. The women's section hummed with whispers and perfume, laughter threaded through fear. The youth lined the back wall, the way youth do when they might need to escape quickly. The imam opened. He quoted verses about backbiting as eating your dead brother's flesh. He spoke about trust as oxygen and boundary as prayer. He said, a marriage without privacy is an open window in winter. You will all get sick. Then he nodded to me that I stepped to the mic and did something I had not planned. I read from my notes. I read that sentence. I wish I could fall asleep inside a good memory. I read about the BQE and God dragging furniture. Not because they were clever, because they were proof that my phone was not a lover. It was a hospital room. And hospital rooms are private. The room made a sound, soft, collective. And I realized half of them were holding small versions of me in their pockets right now. In their notes, inside WhatsApp drafts they never sent. Inside photographs they kept for when their memory forgot how to remember. A hand rose in the women's section. The cousin. She didn't speak. She only looked toward the row behind her, a tiny nod, and the tiny nod moved like a wave. And then, my heart stuttered. She stood. My ex. Ponytail high, scarf around her neck like a statement she hadn't fully selected. The imam called on her. She hesitated, then took a breath you could hear. What if you asked because you were afraid? She raised her chin. And he refused because he had something to hide. I nodded, respect for the bravery it takes to speak in public, battling with the bruise on my ribcage that still carried the shape of her accusation. Then you talk about what you're afraid of, I said. Not about a phone. You say, I'm afraid you're talking to someone else, or I'm afraid I'm not enough for you, or I'm afraid I'm repeating something from my past. You don't frisk someone's soul because you can't articulate your fear. But what if he won't reassure you? I let the silence be sturdy. Then leave him, I said. Don't put a badge on. Don't become the TSA of each other's lives. Walk away. A murmur moved like wind in wheat. She swallowed. From where I stood, I could see her eyes flick to the cousin and then close like doors. I didn't want this to be a duel. I wanted it to be a class. So I read 3 more anonymous stories. One from a husband who had snooped and destroyed the one place his wife stored her grief for her dead brother. One from a girl whose parents read her DMs and turned every inside joke into an interrogation. One from a man who said, I let my partner search me because I thought love means access. And now I feel like a hallway everyone walks through without knocking. Finally, I said, tonight isn't about catching anyone. It's about redefining safe. Safe isn't I can see everything. Safe is I can trust what I cannot see to still respect me. When it ended, people queued the way they do at funerals to offer pieces of themselves like tissues. A boy with a buzz cut whispered that he'd been called unsafe for closing his laptop in his own house. A woman my mother's age told me she'd lost 2 daughters to this, one who snooped, one who walked away. MYX did not approach me. She left early, hand on the cousin's elbow like a canoe roping to its dock. Good. It wasn't the night for the old fight. It was a night to let the principal sit on the carpet and hum in people's bones. The anonymous avalanche by morning, the site had 50 news stories. By the weekend, 200. They weren't all saints. Some confessed to snooping and finding exactly what they feared. I was right, one wrote. And wrong, because I ruined myself trying to prove I was right. A few revealed crimes, and I sent the standard message to report to actual authorities. Most were fog. People misusing love as an excuse to search. I sorted them by theme. I made infographics like the ones we do at work when we want a data team to change a protocol. 67% of respondents felt less safe after searching. 81% said a clear privacy agreement early would have prevented most fights. I printed them like prayer rugs for the modern mind and pinned them at Manny's shop and the masjid corkboard with permission. Samir took me to breakfast. He watched me use the single-serve creamer like it was ritual. You sure this isn't about her? I stirred. It is. But not just. It's about the shape that some of us are forced into. A suspect's shape. And how no is the only tool we have to keep our actual bodies from bending like that. Did you see her face? During your talk? I saw her eyes, I said quietly. They looked like an apology practicing its first words. He leaned back. Think she'll say them? I don't need her to, I lied. Then, truer, I need the room to remember. 2 days later, I woke up to an email from her. The subject line was one word, boundaries. The first sentence, you humiliated me without naming me. Clever. The second, meet me. No phones that we met in a park midway between our apartments. A democracy of pigeons and families and chess players who move pieces like they're telling secrets to squares. The bench was warmer than the air. She wore a jacket that made her look like a color a crayon forgot. She started without hello. You planned that so I'd show up. I planned it so anyone who needed it would, I said. And they did, she said, scanning the pond where geese cut the water like scalpels. You made a movement. It's not a movement, I said. It's an announcement. We're allowed to be human. She exhaled. Do you know why I asked for your phone? Yes, I said gently. You were afraid. I was afraid you'd already let me die, she said. In your head, while telling me I was still alive. She swallowed. My parents used to ask for my phone because they said everyone is dangerous online. They'd scroll and scroll. It felt like being surrounded by guards who kept saying they loved me. After my dad left, my mom checked my phone like it was a weather app. Am I safe today? Is there a storm warning? It made me think that love is checking, that trust is vigilance, that safety is a search bar. We sat with that. The geese wrote dark poems in the water. Somewhere a kid yelled with the joy of being a trumpet without caring if you're on key. And I turned you into that, she said. A forecast. A threat. I didn't ask you what you were writing. I demanded to see if your soul had malware. My soul has a lot, I said. But it's licensed. She laughed once, honest and small. You hurt me. Publicly. I tried not to, I said. I left your name in a drawer. She stared at her hands. It didn't matter. I recognized me inside your outline. That felt like being seen naked through a curtain. She took a breath. But you were right. I blinked. The words were light as balsa and heavy as a bell. About what? About privacy. About me turning a phone into proof. She rubbed her wrists like memory-left cuffs. You're not unsafe. I used that word because I knew it would make people choose my side. I thought weaponizing that would keep me from pain. It didn't. I feel like a cop in my own heart. We let the wind carry that admission into a tree and let the tree hold it a while. A man rolled by on a bike that squeaked like it needed a prayer. I'm sorry, she said. You can hate me. I don't, I said. I want you to help me. She looked up. Suspicion and hope are cousins. With what? With the sight. With the next talk. With wording a thing you could have used when you were afraid. I paused. I don't want this to be revenge that leaves you bleeding. I want this to be a scar we can touch without flinching. She studied me. You're kind, she said, like it was an accusation that didn't fit inside her mouth. I'm tired, I said. Being right is exhausting if you do it alone. Help me shoulder it. She said she needed to think. She took 6 days. On the 7th, she sent a paragraph I read 3 times in my kitchen. I will co-write. I will not get on a stage. So we wrote. Over email, with a shared doc that we named light switches because that's what boundaries felt like. Small, decisive gestures that change a whole room, that we drafted scripts couples could read to each other when phones got hot in their pocket like they were going to wring anxiety into the air. Right now I want to look through your phone because I feel scared. What I'm actually asking is, can you reassure me that I'm still the person you want? If there's a behavior I need to know about, please tell me. I don't need to see your notes app to believe you love me. We wrote checklists for aunties to read before they told a niece that a man who says no is unsafe. Did he raise a hand? Did he threaten? Did you witness harm? If not, do not put unsafe on him because he refused to give you omniscience. We made a section called Repair After Snooping. If you searched, say, I violated your boundary. I'm sorry. I was afraid. I will ask for reassurance next time, not access. Do not say, but you made me. We added an Islamic gloss with the Imam's help. Hadith about the impermissibility of spying, verses about covering faults. We built a secular gloss too, psych research on autonomy and trust. We made no is not guilt look like a map out of a maze that had felt like the only way to walk. The fallout the stories kept arriving. I moderated every night until my eyes burned. A teacher wrote to say she played our privacy talk in a health class. A young man sent a voice memo whispering thank you like he was in a library where the books had ears. The backlash came too. A small but loud group of men who call themselves protectors said we were making it easier for cheaters. A small but loud group of women said we were gaslighting fear. For a week, my DMs were a Tetris of anger. I posted a single reply. If your partner won't talk about behaviors and accountability, leave. But the path out is not through their passcode. It's through your feet, the masjid. A father cornered me with his shoulders. So you're telling my daughter not to listen to me? His voice could have sanded wood. I'm telling her to listen to God, I said quietly. Who said, do not spy. I'm telling her to listen to herself when a no is protecting her dignity. I'm telling you to protect her without building a prison with a window you sit at all day. He sneered. Then he sighed. I used to read my wife's messages, he admitted, tiny, almost lost. I still don't know why she left. I thought it was because I caught her. Maybe it was because I wouldn't stop catching. He left. I stood there holding my shoes like they were answers. Her part she never got on stage. But she gave me permission to read. That's all. One paragraph she wrote, without her name. I read it at Manny's shop and then at a campus event where the mic smelled like fear and gum. I turned love into a checkpoint because I was raised at a checkpoint. I asked a good man to prove he was good by giving me a key to a room that wasn't mine. He said no. I told people that meant danger. But danger is sometimes the person patting you down. I'm sorry. I'm learning a new language where safety doesn't mean search. People cried. The soccer guys. The girl in the sweater. Manny, wiping his eyes with a dish towel like a dad who won't admit a movie got him. A podcast clipped that paragraph and it found its way into city mouths like a small, protein-rich snack. Compact, nourishing, everywhere. Did she apologize to me directly? Yes. Once more, in a message that did not argue with itself. Did she ask to try again as lovers? No. We knew better. We were different rivers now. Some rivers run parallel for a while, and then the land requires them to split. The revenge that wasn't people call what I did revenge. Maybe. It felt more like reclaiming my shape. But if revenge means rebalancing a scale that rumors broke, then yes. I took back the word unsafe from the mouth that had turned it into gelatin they could pour on any man who said no. I handed it back to actual danger and said, you keep it. It belongs to you, not to me. Aunties, some, not all, stopped using no names, but as narrative foreplay. A few even made it a rule at tea. We don't tell stories about people who aren't here to edit the script. A couple reached out to my mother and told her she raised a son whose no saved a room full of future arguments. My mother cried into a dish towel at our sink and told me my grandmother would have been proud. My grandmother always said, locks are not for thieves. They are for sleep. Even the people who had called me dangerous implicitly receded. The way you stop seeing a stain after the wall is repainted by a team that knows what they're doing. One of the men who had forwarded the unstable rumor bought me tea and said, I'm sorry I didn't ask you first. I told him it was okay. It wasn't. But forgiveness sometimes is the door you open so your own house doesn't smell like smoke forever. The only time I broke my rule I did. Once, take my phone and show someone my notes. Not to prove I'm good. To show a boy who came up after a talk with hands that shook like birds that the darkness sometimes needs a window, and writing can be that window. He read the line about God dragging furniture and laughed exactly the way you laugh when your own insides recognize their face in a stranger's mirror that he said. I thought I was the only one with a weird brain. No, I said, you are one of us. We are everywhere. We keep our doors locked and our hearts open. Her final word months later, she posted a close friend's story on Green. Samir screenshot it and asked if he could send it. I said yes if he removed any tags. He did. It read, if you think you know someone, ask to hear their story. Their phone can't tell it. Their notes might. If they say no, listen to the no. It may be love speaking a language you haven't learned yet that I stood at my window and let that sentence walk around my apartment like a quiet child. I didn't need it, but it was nice to watch it touch the furniture, familiar and rearranged. The Echo A school invited me to speak. A small masjid in the Bronx asked if I'd do a version for parents. Manny started a monthly slot for boundary talks and stocked a jar where people could drop anonymous sentences like seeds. He called it the Green Notes. The Imam wrote an article. Trust is not a passcode. It got passed around like dates after fasting. The site outgrew me. I asked for moderators. The cousin volunteered. I said yes. She protected the inbox like an air traffic controller keeps small planes from kissing at bad angles. She once wrote, "We're saving people from becoming cops in their own homes." I wrote back a heart. Was I ever tempted to post screenshots? To reveal her name? To send a nuclear text into the group chat that had first turned me into a warning label? Of course, anger has a flare gun. But every time I touched it, I pictured the room, the coffee shop, the masjid, the school, quieting to listen to a principal speak. Revenge that burns the village to cook a single apology is not revenge. It's arson. I wanted a carnival of small correctives, not one loud siren on a slow Tuesday. The subway paused in a tunnel, and I saw our reflections in the window. A ghost car traveling with us. Me, the boy I had been, the man I was. The crowd we had summoned to witness the difference between secrecy and privacy. The lights flickered. The train breathed. My pocket buzzed with a submission to the site that said simply, "Thank you for teaching me that no can love me." I put a hand over the pocket like you might protect a flame from the wind. Here's what I learned, and what I want to stitch into the hem of this story so it doesn't fray. Love without privacy is not intimacy. It's inventory. Walls aren't always fences. Sometimes they're ribs. They keep the heart from tearing itself on the world that we didn't get back together. That was never the point. The point was to stop a rumor that had put a name tag on me, dangerous, and replace it with a mirror. The mirror says, if you need to search me to love me, you do not love me. You love the feeling of catching someone in a lie you haven't proven yet. And if I ever make you feel like a suspect, I want you to say no to me so loudly that I can hear it in the next room and course correct. When my mother asked me, months later, was it revenge? I told her the truth. It felt like prayer. A loud one. She smiled and said my grandmother used to say, the right kind of loud is the one that lets the quiet finally sleep. Now, when someone tries to make unsafe into a weather word they can throw like rain, I ask them for specifics. Where's the thunder? Who was hurt? What is the harm? If all they bring me is a locked phone, I tell them to put the forecast away. Go inside. Talk. If the house is cold, close the window. If the roof leaks, fix it. If the house is on fire, leave that I still write in my notes. I still run when anxiety claws at the curtains. I keep my passcode. I keep my heart. I keep the talks going because a city this big is just 1,000 small rooms where someone needs to be told that no is not guilt. It is the beginning of an honest yes. And on nights when the train sways and the tunnels breathe and a kid drums his pencils against a backpack like he's calling the car to attention, I put my hand over my pocket, not to hide, but to bless what's inside, a hospital room with a door. Mine. If this story hit a nerve, if you've been pressured to trade your privacy for proof, tap like, drop a comment with the one boundary you'll protect from now on, and share this with a friend who needs it. Subscribe for more true stories where justice isn't loud, it's precise.